The air on the mining colony always felt heavy, filled with dust and the deep echo of machines. But on this morning the workers stood together in silence, staring at the giant creature being led through the gates with thick metal chains. It was huge, covered in dark orange scales that glowed faintly under the sun. Its wings were folded, its head low, its tail dragging across the ground as if it carried the weight of a whole war on it. Everyone knew its name even if they never said it out loud. Rovon. The most hated orange alien dragon in the sector. No one wanted it here. No one trusted it. No one even wanted to look at it for too long. At the front of the crowd stood Terran Holt, the colony's foreman. He watched the dragon with a calm expression, trying to hide the tension in his shoulders. Others whispered behind him, calling him brave, foolish, or both. He was the one ordered by the Central Command to take responsibility for the creature. Everyone else expected disaster. They waited for Rovon to break free, to crush someone, to show the violence the galaxy believed he carried. But Rovon only stood still, breathing slow, watching everything with tired golden eyes. The guards shoved the chains into Terran's hands. He held them firmly even though they were cold and heavy. The guards backed away fast as if touching Rovon too long might curse them. Terran exhaled a slow breath and stepped forward alone. His boots crunched against the gravel. No one followed him. Rovon lifted his head slightly as Terran approached. The workers froze. Some even stepped behind crates to hide, expecting the dragon to lunge. But Rovon did not move. He only looked at Terran as if trying to understand him. Terran stopped a few feet away. He spoke in a low voice, steady and clear. "I'm the one in charge of you now," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to work." His voice echoed across the wide yard. Rovon blinked once, slow, almost curious. The workers expected Terran to get burned, clawed, or crushed. But nothing happened. The silence felt strange, almost uncomfortable. Terran raised his hand slowly, not touching Rovon but letting the dragon see it. Rovon lowered his head a little more as if smelling him. The air around them felt warmer for a moment. Terran noticed something strange in Rovon's eyes. They did not look angry or wild. They looked tired, lonely, and cautious. It reminded Terran of an injured animal trying to understand if a hand was safe or dangerous. The workers whispered louder now. "Why isn't it attacking? Maybe it's waiting? It's a trick. Dragons always strike later." Terran ignored the voices. He stepped back and tugged the chains gently, guiding Rovon toward the open work field. To everyone's shock, Rovon followed without resisting. His claws clicked softly on the ground, but he moved with surprising care, almost as if he did not want to scare anyone. No one had ever seen a dragon behave like that. The miners followed from a distance, staying behind machines and rocks. Their fear filled the air like smoke. Terran could feel their eyes watching every move. He knew trust would not come easily. Maybe it never would. But he had a job to do, and Rovon was now part of that job. When they reached the field, Terran stopped and turned to the dragon. "We'll start simple," he said softly. "Just follow me." Rovon blinked again, then did something that made Terran freeze for a moment. The huge creature lowered its head until it almost touched the ground, as if giving a silent nod. It was small but real. Terran did not know what it meant, but it felt like the dragon was saying he understood. He walked a few steps forward. Rovon followed, slow and steady. Terran tested a few commands, simple directions using gentle movements. Each time Rovon responded. Sometimes clumsy, sometimes unsure, but always trying. It confused everyone watching. Is it trained? No way. Dragons don't listen to anyone. Why is it only listening to him? The whispers grew louder, nervous and confused. Terran kept his focus on the dragon. He could feel something was happening, something no one else saw. Rovon wasn't dangerous right now. He was alert but calm, watching every move Terran made like he was studying him. Hours passed. The sun rose higher. For the first time in years, Rovon was working beside others without hurting anyone. Even if the workers stayed far away, even if they whispered and doubted, Rovon kept following Terran. When the shift ended, Terran led Rovon back toward the storage area where he would rest for the night. The guards stood ready with their weapons, expecting a fight. But Rovon walked quietly beside Terran until they reached the steel enclosure. Before stepping inside, Rovon turned his head toward Terran. His golden eyes glowed softly, almost warm. Terran could feel it, an emotion he could not name. Not trust, not yet. But something close. Then something even stranger happened. When Terran reached out to unhook the chains, Rovon leaned forward slightly, lowering his head as if helping him. The giant dragon made a soft rumbling sound, deep and gentle. The guards stared in disbelief. No dragon does that. It's pretending. It's planning something. But Terran wasn't afraid. He felt a small connection grow, something quiet but powerful. He whispered, "You're not what they think you are you?" Rovon blinked again, slow and thoughtful, as if answering without words. Terran stepped back and locked the enclosure door. The workers left quickly, not wanting to stay near the dragon. Soon the yard was empty and quiet again. But Terran stayed for a moment, watching Rovon settle down inside the enclosure. The dragon lay with his wings tucked neatly, his tail curled around him. His eyes slowly closed, peaceful for the first time in a long time. Terran knew the others still hated Rovon. They still feared him. But he had seen something different today. Something no one else wanted to believe. Rovon wasn't a monster. He was alone. He was waiting. And he had chosen to listen to Terran. Terran walked away with one thought in his mind. This was only the beginning of something much bigger, something that might change the colony forever. The next morning, the sky above the colony was gray, thick with clouds that made the air feel heavy. Terran Holt walked across the yard with slow steps, knowing what waited for him. The workers gathered again, whispering as they watched him approach the steel enclosure where Rovon rested. Some of them still looked angry. Some looked scared. But all of them waited to see what would happen on the second day. Everyone believed the first day was luck. They expected the dragon to show its true nature today. They believed Terran was risking his life for nothing. Even the guards warned him as he passed. "You should keep distance today," one guard said. "Dragons hide their real side," another whispered. Terran did not argue. He only nodded and kept walking. Inside the enclosure, Rovon lifted his head when he heard footsteps. His golden eyes opened slowly, focusing on Terran with a steady calm that surprised even him. The dragon stood quiet and tall and waited. Terran felt something gentle in the air, something almost invisible. The dragon was not tense. He was not angry. He was simply aware. Watching. Listening. Terran unlocked the gate and stepped inside. Workers gasped quietly as if expecting the dragon to strike the moment the gate opened. But Rovon stayed still, giving Terran space. It felt strange to see such a huge creature behave with such care. Terran raised his hand slightly. "Morning," he said softly. Rovon blinked once, and that simple blink made Terran feel like the dragon understood more than anyone expected. Today had a purpose. The colony leaders demanded proof that Rovon could be useful, safe, and controlled without danger. If Terran failed, Rovon would be taken away, maybe destroyed. The thought bothered Terran more than he expected. "Let's see what you can do," Terran said, stepping back and guiding Rovon out of the enclosure. The dragon followed, walking with slow, powerful steps. But even with his size, he moved gently, careful not to crush anything. The workers stepped far back, forming a half-circle around the field. Their eyes were filled with doubt. Terran pointed to a large cargo crate on the ground. "Move that," he said. The crate was heavy, something even strong machines struggled with. Terran waited to see what Rovon would do. Rovon lowered his head, looked at the crate, then wrapped his claws around it carefully. With a single smooth motion, he lifted it and moved it aside. Dust rose in the air. The workers stared, stunned. Did it really just understand him? No way. That crate weighs more than 2 lifters. Rovon placed the crate down gently and stepped back, looking at Terran again, waiting for the next instruction. Terran nodded. "Good. Now the next one." Rovon continued, moving crate after crate. He did it without breaking anything, without snapping, without even growling. He made no sudden movements. Only quiet, careful work. Terran watched closely. He noticed that Rovon always looked to him before each action, as if asking for silent permission. It felt strange, almost respectful. But not everyone accepted it. A miner named Grant, one of the loudest complainers, stepped forward. "This is fake," he shouted. "Dragons don't listen. It's waiting to attack. You'll see." Rovon lifted his head slightly at the loud voice. His pupils narrowed, but he did not growl or move. He only watched. Terran stepped between Grant and the dragon. "Stay back," Terran said firmly. "You're scaring him." "Scaring him?" Grant laughed bitterly. "It killed thousands in the war." Terran kept his voice steady. "He hasn't hurt anyone here." Grant glared but stepped back. Rovon relaxed again, lowering his head. Terran took a deep breath and returned to the test. He pointed toward a pile of metal beams. "One more task," he said. Rovon moved toward the beams. But before he reached them, a loud crack echoed through the yard. One of the support towers nearby had loosened overnight from the storm. It tilted dangerously, beginning to fall toward a group of workers. The workers froze. The tower leaned more heavy and fast. Terran shouted, "Move!" But it was too late. They would not escape in time. Rovon reacted first. With a powerful leap, the dragon rushed forward and braced himself under the falling tower. His claws dug into the ground as he pushed upward, stopping the tower from crashing down. Dust exploded everywhere. The workers stumbled away, coughing and terrified. Rovon stood there, shaking slightly from the weight but holding firm. His wings scraped the dirt. His muscles strained. But he did not give up. Terran ran toward him. "Hold it, just hold it a little longer." Workers scrambled away to safety. Rovon kept the tower raised until the last person moved out of danger. Only then did he carefully lower the tower to the ground, letting it fall in a safe direction. When the dust cleared, the workers stared silently. Rovon looked exhausted but calm. He turned toward Terran, waiting for a reaction. Terran approached him slowly. "You saved them," he whispered. Rovon blinked, almost softly, as if saying it was nothing. But the workers did not know how to respond. Their fear mixed with confusion, turning into an uneasy silence. Grant looked around, speechless for the first time. Terran spoke louder this time. "You all saw it," he said. "He didn't attack. He didn't harm anyone. He protected you." Some workers nodded quietly. Others looked away. But none could deny what had happened. Terran placed a hand gently against Rovon's leg, letting the dragon feel his calm. "You did well," he said in a warm voice. Rovon lowered his head slightly, leaning closer, accepting the touch. It was the closest thing to trust Terran had felt yet. When the workday ended, Terran guided Rovon back to the enclosure. The dragon followed without hesitation. Before entering, Rovon paused and looked at Terran again as if checking if he had done enough. "You did more than enough," Terran whispered. Rovon settled inside the enclosure, curling up carefully. He looked tired but peaceful, as if he had carried a weight heavier than the falling tower. As Terran walked away, one thought filled his mind. This dragon was trying. Truly trying. And tomorrow the real test would begin. The third morning came with cold winds sweeping through the colony, carrying the sharp scent of metal and dust. Terran walked toward the workyard with a tight feeling in his chest. After yesterday's events, things had changed. The workers still held fear, but now there was something else in their eyes: confusion, curiosity, and maybe a small thread of respect. But there was also danger. When something changes too fast, someone always tries to stop it. Terran unlocked Rovon's enclosure. The huge orange dragon lifted his head slowly, his golden eyes blinking awake. He stretched his wings slightly, careful not to hit the walls, then gave a soft rumble, almost a morning greeting. Terran smiled a little. "Ready for another day?" Rovon lowered his head as if answering. But today was not about testing strength or moving crates. Today Terran had to face the colony leaders who demanded proof of loyalty, proof of safety, and proof that Rovon was not the same creature from the war. They wanted a war file. Every dragon had one, records from the ancient conflict where the dragons fought for the Dominion. Rovon's file was locked deep inside the colony archive, sealed for decades. Many believed it held horrible things. Others believed it was too dangerous to read. But Terran had no choice. If he wanted to save Rovon from being removed or destroyed, he had to know the truth. He walked beside Rovon across the yard. Some workers now gave them more space but not as much fear. A few even nodded at Terran. They remembered how Rovon saved their lives. Rovon noticed the change in their energy. He watched them with gentle, slow movements, not wanting to frighten anyone. Terran rested his hand briefly on Rovon's leg. "I'll be gone for some hours," he told him softly. "Stay with the workers. They need to see you're safe." Rovon made a small sound, deep and careful. He did not like being separated, but he allowed it. Terran turned toward the main building. Today he would enter a place most workers never saw, the hidden archive under the command tower. Inside the metal halls, red lights blinked softly. Guards scanned Terran before letting him through. The doors closed behind him with a heavy echo. The deeper he walked, the colder and darker the air became. Finally he reached the sealed archive room. A tall officer stood waiting, Commander Varen. She looked strict, her sharp eyes fixed on Terran. "You're requesting access to a high-risk file," she said. "Do you understand the danger?" "If it helps me know what Rovon really is, yes." The commander sighed lightly. "Follow me." She opened the vault door. Inside were rows of glowing discs, each holding the recorded past of a creature from the war. Some had red stripes, the dangerous ones. Some had black markings, the forbidden ones. Rovon's disc had both. Terran felt the weight of it before he even touched it. He lifted it carefully and placed it onto the projector table. The disc activated with a low hum, filling the room with soft blue light. The recording began. A young Rovon appeared in the hologram, faster, sharper, fierce. But something felt wrong from the very beginning. His movements were stiff, unnatural, like someone forced him to act. Behind him, strange machines glowed, connected to his spine with wires. Terran frowned. "What is that?" he asked. The commander's face hardened. "Control implants. The Dominion used them to force dragons into war. They had no choice." Terran felt a cold shock run through him. He had always heard people say dragons enjoyed fighting, enjoyed destroying. But the recording showed something different. Rovon was not attacking by choice. He was pushed, dragged, controlled like a tool. The hologram shifted to another scene. Rovon hesitated before attacking a target, shaking his head, resisting. The implants glowed violently. He roared, not in anger but in pain. Terran clenched his fists. They tortured him. The commander did not deny it. The next part of the recording made Terran feel sick. Rovon refused a command, an order to destroy civilians hiding inside a shelter. He stepped back, shaking his wings, lowering his head toward the people instead of attacking. Then the implant pulsed again. Rovon collapsed, screaming silently as electricity tore through him. And the recording ended. Terran stood frozen. His chest felt heavy. Everything people believed about dragons was wrong in this moment. They were victims, not monsters. The commander looked at him. "Now you understand why many of us fear them. They were forced weapons. And a weapon without control can still be dangerous." "He saved lives yesterday," Terran said softly. "Yes. But some leaders will not care. They fear what he might remember." Terran took the disc, his jaw tight. "I need to show them the truth." The commander shook her head. "You can't. The High Council will never allow that file to be public. Then I'll protect him myself." When he stepped out of the archive, the world outside felt different, colder, sharper. He carried Rovon's entire hidden past with him. He did not know who he could trust. Someone powerful had kept this secret for decades. Someone wanted dragons to remain hated. As he walked back to the yard, he saw workers gathered in a circle. Dust filled the air. Something was happening. Then he saw Rovon. Surrounded. A few angry workers, ones who still feared dragons, stood with metal poles raised. They looked desperate, cornering him like a monster. Rovon did not fight back. He crouched low, his wings tight to his sides, trying not to scare them. Terran sprinted. "Stop." The workers turned, startled. Rovon's eyes locked onto Terran, the only safe thing in sight. His pupils widened with relief. Terran stood between the workers and the dragon, breathing hard. "What are you doing?" "He saved you yesterday." "He's dangerous," a worker shouted. "We saw his war record. Rumors say he destroyed whole cities." Terran felt anger burn in his chest. "You don't know the truth," he said, voice steady. "But I do." He placed a firm hand on Rovon's side. He was controlled. Forced. Hurt. And he still chose to save us. The workers hesitated, unsure. Rovon lowered his head beside Terran, trusting him completely. Terran looked at the frightened humans, then at the dragon beside him. This was the moment everything changed. And he knew what he had to do next. He would reveal the truth, even if it meant fighting an entire system. Rovon was not a weapon. He was a survivor. And Terran would not let the galaxy forget that. A sudden explosion shook the lower mining tunnels, sending dust into the air and making every worker freeze. At once, shouts rose from the dark paths, angry, loud, and full of fear. The riot had finally started. For days, the workers had been whispering about short rations, broken machines, and dangerous shifts. But now, something had pushed them over the edge. And in the middle of it all stood Karan, the orange alien dragon no one trusted. He had been carrying metal crates when he heard the noise echo down the shafts. His wings tensed, claws digging into the ground. He knew that sound. Uncontrolled chaos. Fear. Desperation. He had heard it long ago on battle planets, where civilians fought soldiers for survival. His eyes narrowed. This mine was about to turn into the same kind of battleground if someone didn't stop it. Jalen, the foreman, rushed in from the upper tunnel. His face was pale. "Karan, don't move. The workers think you caused this. They think you're dangerous." Karan tilted his head. "If I stay, more damage will happen." Jalen grabbed his arm. "If you go out there right now, they'll tear you apart. They're scared, not thinking." Another crash boomed from the left corridor. Metal screamed as someone broke a machine panel. Lights flickered and the entire mine dimmed into an amber glow. Workers shouted and the anger grew louder. Jalen's crew stumbled back toward the central junction, trying to stay safe. But a group of miners rushed in the opposite direction, yelling for tools, wires, anything they could use to fight. Karan listened to the steps, the voices, the panic. Something inside him stirred. He remembered the file Jalen had seen. The truth. The thing everyone misunderstood. He was not a weapon. He had spent most of the war saving villages, not destroying them. And now, these humans were about to harm each other. "Let me help," he said. Jalen stared at him like he had spoken a forbidden word. "Karan, they hate you. If they see you during a riot, they'll think you're attacking." Karan stepped forward anyway. The ground shook slightly under his heavy limbs. "I'm used to hatred. I'm not used to watching good people hurt each other." He walked past Jalen, ignoring the man's worried shout. The deeper tunnels glowed red from emergency lamps. People pushed, shouted, and threw broken parts. Some were trying to calm others, but no one listened. It was a storm. The moment Karan stepped into the open junction, the noise died. Miners turned. Faces stiffened. Tools lifted like weapons. Someone shouted, "There! The beast!" He caused the blast. Karan stayed completely still. His tail curled close to avoid looking threatening. Even breathing too loudly could start a panic. Then a large human worker named Radek stepped forward. He was sweating and furious. "Why are you here, monster? Trying to make things worse?" Karan slowly lowered his head in respect. "No. I am here to stop harm." Someone threw a wrench. It hit the ground near Karan's feet. A few miners shouted again, stepping back in fear when he didn't even blink. Another rumble echoed overhead. Dust fell. A support beam vibrated. The riot had weakened several structures. One more hit and the tunnel could collapse. Jalen finally burst into the junction behind Karan. Everyone stopped. The blast wasn't him. It came from a broken pressure valve. No one listened. Fear drowned his words. Then the beam above them cracked. Everyone looked up. The ceiling groaned, heavy and ready to fall. Terror spread across the crowd. The riot went silent as if someone had cut all sound at once. Karan moved. He leaped forward, wings snapping open, claws digging deep into the rock. He pushed himself upward and caught the falling beam with his back and shoulders. The entire tunnel shook as he took the full weight. Miners gasped and stumbled backward. Karan growled from the strain, but he held firm. Pieces of rock fell across his scales, scraping them, but he didn't drop the beam. "Move," he called out in a strained voice. "Go. Now." For a moment no one reacted. They just stared at him, this massive creature they hated, holding up the tunnel that was about to crush them. Jalen snapped out of it first. "Everyone get out. Now." You heard him. Humans rushed past, some tripping, some dragging injured workers, all running for safety. Karan kept pushing upward, keeping the beam from falling until the last miner escaped. Jalen was the last to leave. He looked back at Karan with fear and respect mixed together. "Karan, come out. You can still make it." Karan looked at the exit. The ceiling groaned again. If he let go, the entire section would collapse too fast for him to escape. But if he stayed, only one life would be taken. He closed his eyes. But then strong arms wrapped around one of his forelegs. It was Jalen. "I'm not leaving you," Jalen said. "I won't let you die for us." Karan's eyes widened. In his old war, no one had ever said that to him. Not once. Not ever. Before either could speak, reinforced support bots rolled in with loud clanks. Someone had activated emergency machinery topside. The bots used metal arms to lift the beam off Karan's back and stabilize it. He stumbled forward, free at last, coughing dust. The moment the tunnel stopped shaking, the miners gathered around. Quiet, ashamed, confused. Radek stepped forward with his head down. We were wrong," he said. "You saved us." Another miner said softly, "Why would you help us? After everything?" Karan looked at them. His voice was calm. "Because hate is your fear, not mine. I do not fear you." The miners had no answer. They only stared at the alien dragon who had just risked everything for them. And that moment, the silence, the shock, the change, was the beginning of something new. The next morning the star mine felt different. It was quiet, almost soft, as if the walls themselves were tired after the long night. Workers moved slowly, speaking in low voices. Some were still shaken, some embarrassed, and some deep in thought. Everyone knew the same truth now. Karan, the orange alien dragon they hated for years, had saved them. Karan stood alone in the repair yard, away from the workers. His scales were dusty and scratched from holding the beam. His wings hurt when he moved. But he stayed calm. He did not want to cause fear again. He waited for orders like he always did. Jalen, the foreman, walked toward him. His steps were uneven, like he was unsure of what he was about to do. A few supervisors followed behind him, whispering. Karan lowered his head politely. Do you need me for work? Jalen looked up at him and his voice came out rough. You saved my life last night. You saved all of us. Karan blinked. It was the right thing to do. Those words made Jalen pause. You know, none of us ever asked why you were really sent here. We just assumed the worst. We believed rumors. We treated you like a danger. I have known worse treatment, Karan said simply. Jalen winced. He rubbed the back of his neck. Still, we should have known better. Workers had started gathering around. Some carried bandages. Some carried tools. Some had their helmets off, holding them awkwardly in their hands. No one dared get too close to the dragon, but they didn't step back either. They watched with wide eyes. Jalen took a slow breath. Then he stepped forward. Karan, he said loud enough for the crowd to hear, you're not our enemy. Yesterday proved that. A few workers nodded. Karan tilted his head, confused. He had heard those words before, long ago, spoken by soldiers who later betrayed him. He did not reply. Jalen continued. The whole mine believes you saved us. I think it's time we show you the respect we denied you. Karan shifted slightly. Respect is not required. Peace is enough. No, Jalen said, shaking his head. Respect matters. Then Jalen did something no one had ever expected. He extended his hand. A human hand, small compared to Karan's huge claws, open and waiting. The workers gasped. Many stared. Some whispered, is he crazy? What if the dragon snaps? What if he misreads the gesture? But Jalen didn't take his hand back. He kept it steady. Karan stared at it. His heartbeat slowed. His mind drifted back to memories he tried to forget, of offering help to humans during the war and being rejected every time. He had learned that humans feared touch from his kind. They feared everything about his kind. But this human was offering a hand. A choice. A bridge. Karan slowly reached out. His claws were sharp, so he turned his palm upward, showing he meant no harm. He lowered one large finger toward Jalen's hand. The second his claw touched the human's skin, the entire yard went silent. Even the machine seemed to stop humming. Jalen smiled. There it is, he said softly. A handshake. Karan didn't understand why his chest felt warm, lighter, almost unfamiliar. But something inside him shifted. He felt seen. Not feared. Not hated. Not judged. See. The workers started whispering, but now the whispers carried surprise instead of fear. Then one miner stepped forward. Radek, the man who had yelled at Karan the day before. He swallowed hard and looked at the dragon. Karan, Radek said carefully, I was wrong about you. Karan blinked. You feared me. That is normal. No, Radek said. I didn't fear you. I hated you. I didn't even know you, but I hated you. And now I feel ashamed. Karan did not know how to answer that. So he simply nodded. Another miner stepped forward. You saved my cousin. She would have died if that tunnel collapsed. Then another. My brother too. Then another. Thank you. Voices grew one after another until a small crowd stood in front of him. Humans who once refused to look at him, now offering words they had never planned to say. Jalen raised his hand to quiet them. From today forward, he said, Karan is no longer assigned to dangerous or unwanted tasks. He works with us, not under us. The workers murmured approval. Karan tilted his head. I have always worked. Yes, Jalen said, smiling, but now you work as part of our team. Not a tool. Not a fear. A partner. The word hit Karan deeply. Partner. No commander in the war had called him that. No human had ever given him a place of equality. Before he could respond, an officer from the starport walked toward them. He held a data pad and wore a nervous smile. Foreman Jalen, he said, I have a message from the Central Authority. News of last night reached them. They saw everything from the security feeds. Jalen tensed. And? They want to meet Karan. The workers gasped again. The officer continued, they think he might qualify for citizenship consideration. Jalen's eyes widened. He's earned it. Karan didn't fully understand what citizenship meant for humans, but he could feel the weight of the moment. For creatures like him, this offer was impossible. No dragon from his species had ever been given such a chance. The officer bowed his head slightly toward Karan. They want to hear your story. All of it. Karan looked at Jalen. Jalen smiled. You don't have to be alone anymore. Karan lowered his head thoughtfully. If my story helps humans understand my people, then I will tell it. The workers around him nodded. Some even smiled, real smiles, warm and human. And for the first time, Karan felt something he had never felt on this world. He felt welcome. Jalen extended his hand again, not as a test this time, not as a sign of bravery, but as a sign of friendship. Karan accepted it. And that simple handshake between one human and one hated alien dragon quietly rewrote a future none of them had expected. A future where fear turned into trust. A future where an orange dragon stood beside humans, not as a weapon, not as a threat, but as a friend. And the galaxy would soon learn the story that started with a single handshake.